All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. We're going to do a little video today on 7-Up presentations, and I'm going to do it from our base personnel grouping, just 3 things I think we could do from our base grouping. For me, this was always a third down package deal, so we did a little bit more out of it, but it was usually in third down passing situations. I'm going to cover it with our base personnel group. Make sure you check out some of our partners, GameStrat, sideline replay company we use. Been using them for a couple years now. I'll use them again now that I'm the head coach. They have a ton of the FCS schools. The national championship game last night, both teams were GameStrat teams, so check them out if you are tired of huddle and you want to make the switch. Dome Hats, which is the headwear company we use. Play Fast Football, every school that I've been at. There is our gap down backer, braided rope hat, dome logo on the side. So if you're into custom hats and you want to promote your program, make sure you check out Dome Hats, because stock hats suck. Baker Sporting Goods company I use for my coach's gear, any fan or stores that we build through them, players' spirit packs, different items that we give to our players and apparel that we give to our players. So if you're in the Northeast Florida area, make sure you check out Baker Sporting Goods. Modern Football analytics tool that helps coordinators with in-game adjustments, trying to make those adjustments series by series instead of waiting until halftime, instead of writing things down by hand and then going back and saying, all right, what are we doing? What are they doing? Are their tendencies the same as they were when we game plan? You're trying to get those things live, play by play, drive by drive, series by series, so that your play caller can make the appropriate adjustments. And then FlyRouteDrones, for me, there's no better teaching angle than a drone angle. We're going to film our practices from a drone angle, 7-on-7 stuff from a drone angle. As long as we legally can do so, we're going to get a game film from a drone angle, because it's the best teaching angle out there. FlyRouteDrones is the nation's leader in drones for athletics, so make sure you check them out. So 7-Up presentations are not new, right? It's not something that is all of a sudden popped up this year, but it's becoming more prevalent, and you're starting to see it more and more, and you're even seeing it more in base down situations, right? I think, to me, in the NFL, Brian Flores is the one that kind of brought it a little bit more to light with an aggressive, chaotic, attacking blitzing scheme instead of that passive pressure scheme. So, to me, it's something that's been around. It's been around for a while. You've always had to deal with it on offense, but now I think it's becoming a little more prevalent because defenses are getting so much better at the presentations and the sims and the creepers and all the different things they could do. So, to me, a 7-Up deal is, the ultimate sim pressure look, if you want to kind of categorize it that way, because you're simulating a potential 7-man pressure, but you know that you're rarely ever going to send 7. You have to have the ability to carry a 7-man house blitz, but you're not going to do that. It's probably going to be less than 10% of the time, but you have to do it, because if you always line up with 7-Up and pop out and drop, eventually teams figure it out, right? So one of the first things that I would do, again, I've got it drawn up with our 3-4 personnel. The last couple of years that I was a coordinator, we were a 3-3, type 3-3, 3-high personnel team, and then the last year I was a defense coordinator. We went to a 3-4 scheme. So I've got it drawn up from 3-4, but I've got it drawn up from more of an even structure up front rather than having the center covered. Because to me, if you want to cover the center and get into 5-man games, so you get one-on-ones and a lot of what you would now categorize as the penny front stuff, or your old-fashioned base personnel bare front stuff, right? If teams are weak on the O-line, then certainly sending 5 and trying to get one-on-one matchups and get your best rusher on their worst pass protector is a way to do that. 7-Up, for me, is not something that I would carry from as much of an odd perspective, because for us, especially, not only in our 7-Up, but in a lot of our 6-Up presentations, I want to do it from even, because when I put a sub package on there, these are all going to be guys that can rush or drop. I don't like to drop defensive linemen in high school. That's just me. I'll drop linebackers from an up look. I'll drop safeties from an up look. But I'm not big on zone dropping defensive linemen. Obviously, the NFL and college are going to do that, but I'm not big on it. So for me, in a subgrouping, these would all be linebacker safety types that could either rush or pop out. And we would do a bunch of things off the turn of the center. All right, but that's not what we do in our 7-Up presentation, right? So in our 7-Up presentation, first thing we would do is some type of man cut deal, right? So we're going to send 5, all right? We're going to send a nickel and a jack off the edge so that they could potentially peel the back. You could do this one way or the other, right? So I'm going to talk to you about cutting it with the Mike or the Will from their positions up mugged in the B gap on the line of scrimmage, which means the guy to the side of the back has to understand that if the back is out, he's going to play that man. So if you want to look at that as wouldn't be a peel from an edge rusher. It would be more of, I call it a cut technique, to where we have other deals on defense where we only send 4, we play man and we cut with linebackers. So we'll play 4 skills man-to-man with corners and safeties, and then we'll cut with our 3 underneath linebackers. To me, the back is rarely used in the passing game in high school, so that's a guy that we want to be a little bit more aggressive in how we drop off of that guy rather than wasting a guy. Or, we could obviously blitz the back if he stayed in protection, but I'm going to make sure my 2 cut players understand that if the back gets out and I'm not peeling, then that player that's mugged up has to get out and play the back man-to-man, and then you lose him, but you still gain 1 underneath rat or cut player, right? If the back stays in protection, which a lot of times versus these 7-up looks, you'll get the back in protection, all right? If the back stays in protection, now I'll gain 2 underneath cut players. So we're going to play man-to-man with the corners and the safeties. We're going to play more outside leverage because their only help is inside and short. And this is something we might do a little bit more passively from off the ball. We play a lot of press man, but if you do this, you don't have a free player in the middle. There is no post player. So you're trying to get the ball out quick because of the presentation. We're still going to send 5 when we do this, all right, in this man cut deal. Our man combination coverages used to be colors, so we had white, black, and red. So like red for us was a standard man under 2 deep, but then white and black were cut coverages, what I call cut coverages, where we were going to have underneath players. So in one coverage we would have 2 underneath cut players, in another coverage we'd have 3 underneath cut players, in another coverage we'd have 2 underneath cut players and a post safety. So I had several different ways that we could combination our man stuff. So this is basically very simple, all right? We're going to go nickel off the edge, jack off the edge. I've got the end right now going straight through the screws of the tackle because this could also be used as a peel theory. Right now I'm gonna say that it is not a peel theory, it's just going to be a cut theory, right? So if it was only a cut theory and not a peel theory, then I would send the end under because I don't have to worry about him recreating the edge if the nickel peels. When I draw up the house pressure, then I'll tell you why we need to rush that way. All right, so we get the end under. We're going to run a game off the center with the nose and our anchor inside, right? So whichever way the center turns, that guy's going to cross face, the other guy's going to pin his hip and go as hard as he can and try and get that match up there based on which way the center turns, okay? Popping out the mic and the will, so if the back were to release, they have to play it man-to-man. If the back stays in protection, they become underneath cut players, vision and break, eyes on the QB, right? If they don't have to handle the back, they want to handle the QB scramble and they want to handle the underneath crossing routes that we can possibly, all right, get help on cutting. So when I use the term cut, which means he looks to cut that first inside route coming, he looks to cut that first inside route coming, gain some help, all right? But we do it with more of a vision and break philosophy, right? So I'm not dropping under with eyes outside. I'm going to drop with my eyes on the cue, and I just use that term cut with our players kind of to help them understand what we're trying to do, where we're trying to get help, right? So obviously, if you're going to carry a 7-up presentation, then the next thing you need to be able to do is you need to be able to send all 7. Right, so when we do that now from this look, all right, when we send all 7, now it's going to be what I call a burn pressure, all right, and this is the, I got this from the Flores stuff that he was doing. So now we're going to be playing with more man, all right, it's going to be a man look, but we're going to be playing with vision and break integrity, right? So I'm going to allow these 4 players that are playing the skill receivers, I'm going to allow them to play 7 yards off the ball with their eyes on the QB, because if I'm sending, all right, all of these guys, we now have to peel the back, right? So to the side of the back, now the end is going to go thick through the tackle, because if the back releases, he might have to ricochet back out to contain. We're going to get 2-on-1 on the guard here with the mic in the nose. We're going to leave the anchor, all right? We're going to send the will. So now we're going to send all 7 guys. All right, several different ways to do that up front. If it's my base package, all right, and I have to do it with my base personnel, we're not going to get crazy with the path. We're going to make sure the nickel and the jack can peel. Right, we're going to make sure these guys understand potentially might have to play screens, especially if the back steps up. Right, so we try to teach these guys, if anybody gets the back, you have to own him man-to-man and play him in the screen game. All right, we got to teach the nickel and the jack to peel, because if the back gets out, we're in trouble. But the back end players are playing what I would call a burn technique. All right, and we use a red light, green light theory. I've got my eyes inside on the quarterback. If green light means that ball comes out, I can now break and drive. So it's the same thing we teach in our 6-man pressures when we are playing 2 underneath 3 deep, right? I just call this a burn technique because I want to be able to clarify those guys when we're playing hots, when we're playing burns, right? It's a very similar technique for a lot of guys, but when it's a burn technique, they know that it now becomes All right, red light, green light, eyes on the cue first. All right, anything that becomes drop back and ball not out, now we're going to transition back to man. We're sending 7, we're expecting the ball out quick. All right, but we have to be able to transition. We don't just play straight man-to-man when we do this. It's not a zero pressure. We have zero pressures. This is not a zero pressure. This is what we call a burn pressure. We know we're sending 7. We know if the back gets out, we're sending 6. Somebody's going to be free. The ball has to come out. So we expect it to come out. So we play a burn technique. And again, my terminology, how I teach it, burn technique means we are going to have eyes on the cue, red light, green light. All right. Ball comes out of that cue's hands quickly, green light. We can now, all these players can now drive to where the ball's going. Very similar to your 2 under, 3 deep hot coverage stuff. Eyes coverage, we call it vision and break, however you want to terminology that, right? Anything that's a red light, right? So anything that's a red light in this theory is if we get some type of drop back pass and it's not quick game, we now have to transition our eyes back to be able to play man-to-man. We're still expecting quick game routes. We're still expecting potential fade routes. That's why we play this from off the ball. We don't play it from press. We don't want to send 7 and give them that look to where they can just throw it over the top of you, right? We want to force this guy to throw, or force the cue to throw balls. And then again, if they think they're getting man and we can draw man type throws and they try to go to the flat, well, the corner has his eyes on that. We can drive that right now, right? You're not going to get us on slant flat and get this guy on the safety on some type of pick, because we can trade that off now, because if corner gets a green light, all right, so we call it, you're looking at the cue. If the cue right now grabs the ball, punch 1, ball comes out of his hand, we're now going to rip and run to where that ball comes out. All right, so a very simple path up front. We're not trying to get crazy, because we know, all right, if the back gets out and we peel, it's 6 on 5. If the back stays in, it's 7 on 6. We know we're getting home, right? It's just a matter of what we need to do on the back end and how we need to get home. So we need to be gapped out, right? Because you might potentially get quarterback run game traps, other things. We should always have an extra guy in that theory, all right? So you have to be able to do that, what I would call house burn pressure. You have to be able to do that if you're 7 up. Otherwise, they know your 7 up presentation. You never send all 7, right? And then with our base group in, the last thing that I would do is I would be able to play some type of cover 2 deal, right? So that it ties into some of the burn stuff. It ties into not always playing some type of man or some type of vision and break or some type of cut theory, right? So if we were to do it, again, we always try to put the nickel up to the side of the back can trade, we have to cover all those things, right? So we had to, so the reason I carry cover 2 from this situation is I don't like the leverage on where the number 2 receivers are. The ball's probably going to come out quick. So with the ball coming out quick, I have to be able to handle 2 to the flat. Could you play some type of quarters theory behind it, 2 read behind it? You could. I make it real simple. We go to just a standard traditional 2 deep. When we're in our sub package, we have a way to play Tampa 2 out of this. I am not going to be one of those guys that runs one of these mug players to the pole position in Tampa 2. That's not something I'm going to do. I know that Brian Flores and the guys in college, I know they have so many exotics where they run guys out to the pole from up on the line of scrimmage. That's just not what we're going to do, right? So now we're going to try and get into a situation where we're going to rush 4, okay? So now we know if we're going to play 2, we're going to play the corners down in the flat, going to play the safeties off the half, all right? And now we're going to get the nickel to drop and try to wall 2 there, all right? Our Mike is going to become our strong side 3 hook player. Our Will, now you can do it Will or Jack on that side in your base personnel. When this is our sub personnel, I could get to this look 5 different ways because I could drop any one of these guys because they're all linebackers and safeties. When it's our base personnel group, we're going to drop droppers and rush rushers. So for us, this goes right back to almost our mint theory, all right? Not the front itself, but the 4 guys we're going to rush, because now we're going to have to work the end outside. We can do whatever we want up here. It could be a game or it could just be straight rush, and then the jack can rush off the edge, which that to us, the end, the nose, the anchor, and the jack rushing is how we play our mint front defense, right? Obviously, that wouldn't be the front. They wouldn't be lined up there, but those 4 guys are the rushers, right? So in our mint presentation, that's what we do. So now we get to a world where we can play a zone coverage, all right? We're not popping out off the center. We're not doing off the center's turn. This is predetermined that we're dropping to our cover 2 landmarks, right? Now, those are just simple ways that you can present 7-Up, right? 3 simple coverages, nothing too crazy. You can get as exotic as you want from this. For me, it's more of a sub-package deal, but I think we need to work on it more with our base personnel grouping, because I think on third down, teams are going to start subbing less, and you're going to have to carry these exotics with your base group. So you're going to need them with your base group, your nickel group, your dime group, whatever packages you think you can get in, you're going to need to do it, right? So 7-Up presentations are a big deal. It became one of the funnest things for me to do on defense. Third down was one of the funnest things to do if I could get teams in that situation. Obviously, first and second down, predicate getting teams in that situation. You want to get them into a deal where you know that analytically, statistically, you are going to get throw game, and then you're trying to understand what they do in the throw game, what their protection is, what routes they run, because that's where you're trying to steal something there, right? Obviously, defending runs becomes a little bit of an issue out of this, but a lot of times at the college level, if it's third and long, they just play the runs on their way to the quarterback or as they drop. So again, simple man cut deals, 7-man house or burn pressures in my terminology, and then a simple cover 2 deal. Could you do more out of this? You certainly can. Could the pass get more exotic? Yes. Could the coverages get more exotic? Yes. I like to keep it simple. Hopefully that helps you guys with stuff that you're doing. You're probably doing stuff, or some of that stuff already. You're probably doing more or better stuff than I'm doing, but hopefully this helps some of you guys out. Appreciate you guys being here with us. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. See you guys next time.